Alrighty, well, we actually got a large amount of our registrations already joining us, so we are going to go ahead and kick off today's Illinois Apex Accelerator at Champaign County EDC webinar with our director, Kelly. Before I hand it over to Kelly, just a few quick things. You are welcome to ask questions throughout the session. We just ask that you submit those via the chat box, and we will cover them once Kelly is done with her presentation. So we will run through everything, make sure we get that covered within the hour, and then we will address those questions, but you are welcome to submit them at any time. You will also receive a follow-up email later today. It will include a PDF version of Kelly's PowerPoint so you can revisit any of the information that is shared, and it will also have a link to the recording. So if you want to go back and listen to it again or share it with someone on your team, you will have the opportunity to do that. I will also include in that follow-up email a link to our events calendar so you can join us for any of our other upcoming sessions. They are all offered at no cost and totally confidential. Right now, all of our Apex focused ones are offered virtually, but we do have some SBDC ones that cover marketing, legal, accounting, HR, things like that, that are both virtual and in person. So those are all listed on the same events calendar, so you'll be able to see everything offered here at our office. So at this time, I'll hand it over to Kelly and we can get started.
Thank you, Jordan, and good morning to everyone that's joined us today for the webinar. I'm interested in the solicitation. Now what? So this is a way to break down a federal RFQ, RFP solicitation for a little better understanding. And I will say, while we are focusing on federal today, many of these concepts will also apply. Just forms will be different on the state side. So again, as Jordan said, I'm Keli Krueger-Huhra, the director of the Illinois Apex Accelerator at the Champaign County EDC. There's my contact information. We've got a lot to go through this morning, so I'm going to make my introduction about our center very brief. Basically, we're here to support at the Champaign County EDC all of the clients that would like to pursue and perform under contracts with both the Department of Defense, which is one of our funding organizations, any other federal agencies, and we do support state and local government agencies as well with their government contracting needs. So we want to be here to educate like we're doing on the webinars. So not only our training, but our one-on-one counseling. We want to get as many procurement suppliers into the state, federal, and local supply chain as we possibly can, because that stronger industrial base gives greater competition and higher quality goods at a lower cost to the government agencies. So this is just an example of what those services will look like. Not all inclusive, but basic market research, finding government opportunities. Once you get those opportunities, understanding how to submit for those, like we're going to do this morning, and then post award. Hopefully the understanding and providing a responsive and appropriate bid will get you the business, and how do you perform on that then after the contract has been awarded. And then on the right side, you just see some of the statistics for the organization. And if by chance we have reached you outside of the Champaign-Urbana Central Illinois area, we have 11 total centers in Illinois, so your slides will also include a way to connect with centers that might be more community-based to where you are located. Okay, so now we're going to get into the details of today's webinar. We're going to, on the agenda today, talk about basic solicitation terminology. A responsive versus a responsible offeror, critical keywords, very important to account for in a government solicitation. How do you qualify the opportunity? Is it right for you? Federal solicitation forms and formats. We're going to take a look at those, and then really just walk through the process of breaking down a solicitation. I am going to go through this rather quickly. You will have the slides to refer to, but at the end, I hope we have enough time to actually go through a solicitation and put all these issues to practical application. Okay, so solicitation preparation. As part of the acquisition strategy for the agency that's going to be issuing the solicitation, the agency must consider the following. Is there small business participation available? So can they set it aside? So they're doing market research, as you were doing market research, to target that agency as a potential customer. What is the contracting method? Very important. Is it a simplified acquisition, meaning it's under $250,000? Is it going to be a sealed bid? So it's not going to be open and transparent as far as reviewing all of the incoming information? And or is it going to be contracting by negotiation? So what type of contract it is? Very important for you to understand if you're going to bid on this contract. Is it a fixed price or is it a cost plus? And we'll talk a little bit about that. What are the agency's needs? The statement of work, the performance work statement, the statement of objectives. What are they providing you to know what you're bidding on? Also, extremely important, how are they going to evaluate your bid? What are those significant factors and sub-factors? And we will touch on that. And what is the source selection procedure? Is it going to be a trade-off, best value, just low price technically acceptable, which is LPTA? Okay, so very important. The solicitation says what it means. And you're going to focus on a couple of sections in particular, the solicitation in totality, but section L is going to give you the instructions to the offer. Okay, how do you submit it? What do you need? Do you need the table of contents, etc.? And then M again goes to the evaluation factors. But if the solicitation is unclear, you have to ask the questions. Failure to do so presents an offer from challenging that agency's interpretation. Okay, so if you are patent ambiguity, meaning it's very obvious that it's there, or latent ambiguity means that you're not quite sure, you as the contractor are going to be responsible. Whether it is obvious or maybe not so obvious, you're going to be responsible to ask the questions. Then they'll tell you, the agency will tell you how they will respond to the questions, but it's not binding unless it's incorporated into an amendment, which will come into the solicitation as such, and you will have to acknowledge that amendment. So consider filing a protest. That is always the last way that you'd want to go. Protesting the solicitation, if you're going to do it, if it's that unclear and the answers are not there for you, that solicitation must be submitted before the due date that is announced on the solicitation itself. Okay, so let's talk about pre-solicitation terminology. We talked about the agency doing market research to get to the point where they're going to put it in the government point of entry, the GPE. And that's where is the solicitation itself, where's it going to live? Where is it going to be available for it to be found by potential bidders? So all of the synopsis of the contract action, the solicitations, everything goes into that point of entry. The majority of the time, 98% of the time, that is for federal solicitations, the system for award management known as SAM. And there's the website for that. And I will say too, in these slides, there are hot links. So if something is mentioned, you should be able to get to it from the slide. So also in this SAM database where you had to go and register your business, you have a UEI and a cage code in sam.gov. The other side of that is contract opportunities. Your business is in the entity information side. Okay. Now, special notices also come out in sam.gov. Now, that's usually an announcement of some sort of a procurement matter, not a solicitation, but a business fair. Long-range procurement estimates. Maybe they're putting out some forecasting information. Pre-bid, pre-proposal conference, also very important. So you've got industry days and other information. It's helpful to have and something to take note of, but not necessarily something you're going to bid on. Okay, and then again, going to that market research, source sought. Generally speaking, a source of sought is tell us that you're out there. Tell us what your status is. Are you small? Are you one of these set aside opportunities? And really, they are just wanting to know, can I put this out there as a restricted solicitation, meaning it's not in the full and open marketplace. And then the last one is request for information. And what that is a more detailed request to industry to tell us how we can solve this problem or this pain point that we have. We're looking to buy something, but we're just not exactly what the technical or other information is, the solution that's out there in industry. Again, trying to get that information ahead of time before, and chances are looking to write the solicitation based on the feedback that they receive. Requests for information sources sought, very important to respond to, even though you're not bidding, you're not asking for pricing information, but this really sets up how that solicitation is going to be released. Okay, now let's assume the solicitation is released. Let's talk about some key terms in that solicitation. Again, set aside, meaning it is restricting competition, whether it's just to a total small business or further defined. And I'll give you a reminder of those in just a minute. Pre-solicitation, this is a heads up. This is a summary of a forthcoming solicitation, and it is summary. You won't get all the attachments, but it's just, this is coming, be on the lookout, heads up, usually issued at least 15 days before the solicitation to give you a little pre-planning. At that point, you can come in and ask some questions. Now, from our other discussions that we've had on market research and on market strategy, those that have been working with the agency, discussed their capabilities with the agency, building a relationship, they are really the ones that are in the best position to fully utilize the solicitation to get ready to respond. And then you've got the traditional combined synopsis and solicitation, which means they're just putting it out there. Okay, it's a streamlined approach, commercial items valued at less than the simplified acquisition threshold, and that today is $250,000. And then you have a solicitation, an advertised invitation to bid, quote, or a proposal to fulfill a requirement to the government. Okay, this is just a reminder quickly of the set-aside market, the women-owned, the small disadvantaged business, which includes 8A certified businesses, the hub zone, and service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. And if you are not familiar with any of those, please follow up afterwards, and we can certainly talk more about that set-aside market. Okay, one thing to understand too, provisions versus clauses. So as you do an extensive review of a solicitation, understand that a provision is a term or condition used exclusively in the solicitation. It applies only before the award. So an example would be how offers will be evaluated. That's not going to be incorporated in the contract, but extremely important to know as you prepare your bid. Instructions to offers, representations, and certifications, they're incorporated usually at the end so they can be easily removed when they issue their award document. And a clause that is incorporated into, that is a before and after part of your contract award. Okay, so just to further reiterate, a bid is submitted in response to an invitation for bid. Now, IFB is what that acronym stands for. Typically uses a sealed bidding procedure as prescribed in the FAR. Hopefully you are all familiar with the Federal Acquisition Regulation. The 53 parts of that really dictate acquisitions in the government. So this particular one is referred to in FAR Part 14. Awards are made based on price and price-related factors. Okay, so that's your key there on the evaluation is price. Proposals, however, are submitted in response to a request for proposal, that RFP acronym, and that is a negotiated procurement using procedures described in FAR Part 15. And they're based on price and non-price factors. So that's really a best value approach, and quality is most frequently considered in that case. So now you have a request for quote. That's under the simplified acquisition procedure, again, $250,000 or less, and that's found in FAR Part 13. I do highly encourage you to go to these FAR parts. You can just do a Google search and find each one and find the clauses contained in here. This is what you're bidding for and bidding to in these solicitation responses. So you're committing to what is specified in the Federal Acquisition Regulation. So in the case of RFQs, you've got awards based on price and non-price factors. Price is most frequently considered. Responses are not offers, and the government may or may not enter into a contract, purchase order, or buy. Contract is established when the supplier accepts the offer. Bids and proposals are binding when you submit them. Bids must be withdrawn if you're going to do it before the bid opening and proposals before contract award. So this is really a key difference between a bid and a proposal evaluation. Bids are opened in a public forum, meaning they are transparent. All bidders and their prices are known. Okay, now a proposal opened by the source selection board in private. Only the contract awardee and the awarded dollar amount are known. So they will follow up in SAM post an award. So that's one of the things that you can be notified of. But what you're going to see is who won it and what the total dollar amount of the contract is. You're not going to see the details of the evaluation or your competitors, and it is a secretive process, in other words. So if you're bidding on a request for proposal, expect, according to, again, FAR Part 15 is where that's found, the government's going to tell you their requirements. They're going to give you the terms and conditions. They're going to give you instructions that you need to know how you're going to bid, and they're going to give you the evaluation criteria. What are the most important factors, and in what order of relative importance are those factors being considered? Now, in the case of an RFQ, again, that's done in FAR Part 8. At a minimum, in a request for quote, they're going to give you the statement of work or also a performance work statement. The evaluation criteria, again, how are they going to go through all of the bids they receive? Quotes do not establish a binding contract agreement with the government. That is done when the contractor accepts the government's subsequent offer by either signing the quote, and they will likely ask you to sign it and send it back, or the expectation is when you perform, when you deliver product, then you've accepted the contract. So here is just a sketch, a visual, shows you the request for proposal or the invitation for bid. It's an offer, it's acceptance by the agency. In the case of the RFQ, quote is submitted, purchase order offer is made to you as the bidder, and then you accept it, either by a written signature or by delivering the product. That big difference there. So there are two broad categories of contracts. Fixed price, which that's the most common, and really the government prefers that, and we'll talk about why, or cost plus. It's only used when the cost can't be fixed. So cost reimbursement, incentive fee, time and materials, when there's just no way to be able to say this is going to be the cost up front. The solicitation document will tell you which form of pricing is expected. Okay, so in a fixed price contract, the risk or reward lies with the contractor. You've given them a price, they've locked it in. It's your incentive to control costs. Now, if you are really good at controlling costs, you may actually, not make more on the project and not have it be as costly as you bid. There is also risk that you exceed the cost and the agency is not going to come back with any more funding than the price that you bid. Price is established at the time of award and not subject to change. A minimal administration burden. It's used when the quantity at a known price and the scope of work with minimal performance risk is known. Now, in a cost type contract, again, this is less risk to the contractor, so that's why the government prefers fixed price. In this case, it's less risk to you because you're going to be reimbursed for the costs that are allowed. You will be paid for those, and an estimated total cost needs to be established as a funding ceiling. It is much higher administration burden for you. In fact, if you are going to have a cost plus, you're going to likely be audited on your accounting system to make sure that you are going to be covering and capturing all the costs. A notification letter when you're approaching 75% of the costs so that you can avoid any overruns on the contract. Price is difficult to determine when certainty in advance. A scope of work is relatively unknown. And this is really found commonly in research, architectural and engineering, and development type contracts. Okay, now, when you look at a solicitation, this is the section breakdown of what you would expect to see. Okay, from the solicitation contract form, how they want the pricing, the description and the specifications, and especially in the case of the Department of Defense, the packaging and marketing. Very strict requirements. And in fact, if you don't follow those requirements, it could cause you to have to go down to wherever you ship that product and do inspection or do relabeling. And we've heard nightmare stories about that. So it's very important to understand that packaging and marketing before you place your bid. Deliveries or performance, where are you going to send the materials? Contract administration, any special requirements, the contract clauses, list of documents. We're going to see where those are in the solicitation itself. Your representations, certifications, and other statements. Of course, your representations and certifications are in your SAM profile, and you will follow the solicitation, understand if there are any special requirements in there. If not, and your reps and certs are up to date, you will be able to download those from sam.gov to submit with your proposal. Your instructions, and there's sections L and section M that we've already pointed out are very important, not only your instructions, but your evaluation factors for award. Okay, so what are the most common forms that are used? You have a standard form 18, and if it's a request for quote, you'll be using that. A standard form 30, that is your modification. That's your amendment. That's any changes that are brought about because of question and answer or just something that was noticed through the contractor. But you're going to have to follow those and acknowledge those and commit to whatever comes through on an amendment, unless it is just a question and answer. But particularly want to pay attention to a Q&A because that's going to give you potential additional information for your bid. Standard Form 33, solicitation offer and award, can be used as a single document in RFPs and RFIs. And again, we're referring to FAR Part 15, which is contracting by negotiated acquisition, which we've said those can be negotiated acquisitions. And standard form 1449, we see that a lot. That is a very common form used. That can become your contract. So it's a solicitation form. You will sign that. We'll see that in just a minute. They'll sign it and send it back to you. That can become your contract with all the additional information. It's primarily a form used for the acquisition of commercial items in accordance with FAR Part 12, which is acquisition of commercial items. Okay, just a caveat, the forms referenced above may or may not be used when soliciting bids, quotes, or proposals. Okay, this is a standard form 18. Now, again, those hot links will take you to this, but just for a visual, you can see this is a request for quotation form. This standard form 30, that's your amendment form. That's what you're going to see as the follow-up. Standard form 1449, again, very familiar. This is used quite a bit. The agency fills in many of these boxes. There's a place for you to sign and use this. This may have a schedule where you provide unit pricing here, or there may be a separate schedule for pricing. Okay, commercial contract format. In the FAR Part 12, it's going to tell you what the contract format looks like. It's a standard form 1449. That's what we just looked at. Continuation of any of those blocks. Again, maybe you'll have a separate form, for example, for your pricing schedule. Contract clauses will be referenced there. Any contract documents, exhibits, or attachments, solicitation provisions. Expect to see all of those in a commercial contract format. Okay, non-commercial solicitation, there's your form SF standard form 33. Bit more complicated there. Okay, these are forms that are not, but may be used. They're not as common. Architecture and engineering services, many times according to the FAR Part 36, are used as a standard form 330. Standard form 1442, construction, alteration, and repair. So that is construction or dismantling, demolishing, or removal of improvements. Contracts usually, when they're expected to exceed $250,000, use that. And the standard form 1447, used in connection with negotiated acquisitions. And it could be used instead of standard form 33. Okay, so now how does the agency describe needs? Now we've looked at the format, the forms that are requested in the solicitation. Now, statement of work. That's a portion of a contract which establishes and defines the non-spec requirements for the contractor's efforts, either directly or with the use of a specified cited document. So they're going to explain to you what you are going to be bidding on. Performance work statement, that's a work for performance-based acquisitions, describes the required results. This is going to tell you, specify to you the requirements of your efforts. This is going to say, what is my end game? What result do I want to achieve in a clear, specific objective with terms with measurable outcomes? Statement of objectives, it's a document incorporated into the solicitation that states the overall performance objectives. Again, how are you going to get there? Used in solicitation tends to provide maximum flexibility each offer to propose an innovative approach. So you know where you need to get to. You're going to tell them how you're going to do that. So in a statement of work, describing the work to be done with specifications and detailed quality standards, performance standards, minimum requirements or quantities, case of items, time and location of performance, all specified in the statement of work. Statement of objectives, the government prepares a document and it's put into the solicitation and it states the overall performance objectives. Again, maximum flexibility for the offerer to propose how they're going to do it. Okay, so section L, your instructions. Be very careful to catch all the shall, will, and must references. So throughout the solicitation, those terms, shall, will, and must, denote that they are imperative. That you are acting on those. You are bidding on those. In the solicitation and the resulting contract, they all have the same meaning. The other critically important keywords are required, mandatory, due, and date. Okay, so as you're building an outline, section L is very key. So we recommend that you create a matrix to ensure those requirements are all answered. So a matrix can be an Excel spreadsheet where you one by one, it says you shall do this. That is a line item on your worksheet. It is a checklist for you to go to say, it says, I will do this. Did I include this in my proposal, in my quote? Did I reference this? Okay, and references FAR Part 52.212-1 as a template to help you format your matrix. Maybe it's one of the things in your matrix, you will submit to them a milestone chart. Okay, make sure that a milestone chart is on your checklist. You will only submit 10 pages. Double check. Did I not exceed 10 pages? Okay, all of those things that you find in the solicitation that says you, by any of these keywords, you will do, then make sure you've included that. All the instructions in section L, the Government Accountability Office is going to strictly enforce these restrictions on page limits. They will even tell you font size, date and time of submission. You cannot go past the due date and time for that submission and be considered responsive. Place and manner of delivery. Again, in the instructions, it will tell you, do you email it? Do you submit hard copies? Who do you send them to? In addition to how many pages, do they want it in a PDF at a certain time? At this email address has to be met. Okay, why are they so important? When you read a solicitation, these words indicate that these are non-negotiable and statutory requirements. If you miss one requirement related to the keywords, your offer will be deemed non-responsive and rejected. When related to contract performance, these critical keywords indicate you, and this includes the subcontractors that may be working with you. It'll tell you the things that you need, for example, bonding and insurance requirements. Very important. If you need to show proof of a bond, if you need to show proof of a bid bond, then that is to be included as well. Okay. One thing that was a game changer for me, and I was probably late to the game to learn this, but that's the control F function. And if you control F and sort all those keywords and highlight them, that is one huge time saver to be able to find all that information. You may already be aware of it, probably are, but I wanted to share that because I think it's a game changer. Application instructions. Solicitation will contain a section of application instructions, all the detailed information to include. Do they want a cover letter? I would suggest that you put a cover letter on there, and just thank them. Reference the solicitation number. Thank you for letting me submit this. We are so excited about this. We are so capable. We will explain to you how we are going to be the best solution for the agency for this. Acronyms, if you are in a trade or in a profession that uses acronyms, and don't assume that they understand them, put a little key, a table in there that says, if I use RFQ, that stands for request for quote. Now, it doesn't have to be something that is assumed in a solicitation, but most certainly something in your professional description, if you use those acronyms, define those acronyms. And then executive summary, and we'll highlight that in just a minute, and any appendices that are noted or needed in there. Table of contents, solicitation instructions will determine the format of the response. So make sure, obviously you're following the number of page limit, but how many total pages for the technical solution response and the total number of pages per section. You will notice that in some solicitations where they give you a grading scale and technical is as important, if not more important than the cost, then that technical proposal will be a separate section and the price information will be a separate section. And in that way, they'll review the technical and screen the bidders that way. If they find you technically competent and capable, then they'll look at your pricing. So that's why it is submitted in separate sections, and that's why you number the pages of each section. Your solicitation responses numbering system and section titles, very important, section titles, however they're called out in the solicitation, then match in the instructions, match those as closely as possible when you set up your table of contents. Understanding those terms and conditions, they may be called a boilerplate, but you need to read them and reread them. Don't discount that they're important, and no shortcuts. Research anything you're not sure of. And the government, again, that latent understanding or patent ambiguity, make sure you understand all of those T's and C's. And if you don't, ask the question. Okay, so an executive summary is also very key. Tell them what they have just seen, okay? Or tell them what they are about to see in the executive summary. Price and discounts. Where is the pricing? What response template did you use? Explain how you arrived at this price so they understand that. Terms and conditions. You affirm that, yes, you are in agreement with those terms and conditions. Your representations and certifications. Anything that they have checked, they say that you are obligated to. I agree. You acknowledge that. Acknowledge the solicitation and the amendments. Again, going back to anything that changes after the solicitation is issued, you are agreeing that you have read them, sign them, and include them in your response. Just an acknowledgement of that. And don't do anything longer than asked to do. Okay, let's talk about section M, which is the evaluation criteria. Again, study the importance and point scales if they use it very carefully, because they'll provide you a lot of clues on where you need to prioritize. Where are you going to spend the most time and make it the most important in your proposal that you're writing. Your capabilities and your past performance are ranked in a solicitation from most important to least. And you know that the most important, technical staffing, they may ask you to submit resumes of your key personnel. If the technical and the staffing are key elements for this evaluation, experience and capabilities, and your past performance. And there are different ways that they'll ask for past performance. They may give you a form that they want you to have your past performance references fill out, they may ask that those forms come directly back to them. That way they know that that was an honest evaluation from that customer that you referred them to. So sometimes there's no numeric scores or point scales used, but the solicitation will tell you it will be judged on a specific set of factors. It's extremely important that you thoroughly understand that evaluation criteria. Okay, so there are factors in evaluation and there are sub-factors that will be listed in the solicitation. The technical, again, what is your management approach? Who are your key personnel? How's your technical capability? Prove to them and don't just repeat back what is in the solicitation. Define for them. I will do this in this way. I am capable to do this because I have performed this for other government customers or other commercial customers. We always look at government first. So explain to them, convince them how you're going to do this. Okay, past performance information on your past contracts. Or again, you may be relying on key personnel. If you're new to the market and you're stepping out early and you don't have that all important past performance, but you still want to try, still think it's a good way to jump in and get some experience bidding, that's fine, but you're going to have to write a narrative that makes them understand maybe your company doesn't have many past contracts, but you have key personnel that bring with them a lot of experience and capabilities from other projects they performed. Also, as a subcontractor, talk about you've done work for someone who has worked for the government. Subcontracting is a great way to get started. It's transparent to just say, we've done this kind of work. You're not going to have a reference with a government client, but you can talk to this commercial, this agency that worked for the government that I worked for. Okay, so past performance is something that, again, working with an Apex Accelerator, we can help you craft that narrative if it's not as direct as here are the customers that I have previously performed, especially government customers on there. And then cost price, the cost evaluation criteria. Is the price reasonable? Is it realistic? And have you given the best possible affordability that they're going to ask for in the evaluation criteria to make yourself competitive? Okay. Understand that these are the grounds on which you will be selected or not selected. So think like you're the buyer. What qualities in a vendor would you be looking for and highlight those qualities? Hang the selection criteria on the wall above your workspace so that you can refer to that criteria as you're writing and figuring out how you're going to incorporate that criteria, that evaluation criteria into your proposal to give you the best possible outcome of being selected. Okay, so just as an example, here's a sample weighted evaluation criteria. So if you looked at a solicitation and you wanted to know what is most important in this, obviously it's the technical approach. That is 60 points. So if you look at a scale of 100 points, 60% of that is going to be your technical approach. Okay, how does that divide out? Your management and capacity. Okay, so tell them, we have open capacity, we can do this. We have 3 engineers, we've got, an engineer on standby waiting for a new project. Our management, here's our key personnel. Maybe there's a resume involved if it's requested, but you highlight the people that will be working and they are technically capable. Partnerships, maybe you've connected with another business to help expand your capacity and your capabilities. You've got somebody that's doing part of the work with you. Highlight that. You can't say that you've got it internally, but you bring in other partners to help you and make you more capable. And the project description. Again, you saw in one scenario, they're going to give you maybe a statement of objectives, and you're going to have to tell them how are you going to perform, how are you going to get there to those objectives. And then cost. So only 15% is cost related. So heavily weighted up here. So where are you going to spend your time? You're going to spend your time on the technical approach. And then the cost realism and the cost effectiveness is going to be reviewed, I'm certain, after they look at your technical approach. So if your technical approach doesn't make it through the screening, they're not even going to look at your cost. Past performance is worth as much as cost, again, supporting the technical nature of being able to perform. And sustainability is 10%, and that's your total of 100 in this scenario. Okay, so to kind of tie it all together, you have your statement of work or your performance work statement. Those are your requirements. Okay, your contractor is over here trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Section L was your instruction to the offers. That's your format. Okay, how are you going to submit this bid? And then you have section M, and those are your evaluation factors. And if you look at the degree of value, the format, and the requirements, those all go into your proposal. Your technical, your past performance, and your price. Okay, so again, going back to that expectation that you are obligated, if you don't understand something, it's not going to be okay to go back to them after the fact and say, wait a minute, that wasn't my understanding, or that wasn't clear in the solicitation. If the documents aren't clear enough about the scope of work, ask to clarify. If you want more details about the specs or the items being requested, just ask. All they can do is say no. And every question that is submitted in writing will be answered back. Either we can't tell you, or giving you the answer in that amended document. It doesn't deter agencies from choosing you. So please don't feel like if you ask a question that you're going to be blackballed. That is not the case. Ask the question, and it may be asked by others, but everything you ask is going to be made public in that addendum. Agencies issuing bids encourage businesses to ask questions, but that's why they give you a question and answer period. Contact only those persons identified and show you where to find that. Know the due date, get your requires in, because you're going to have a due date for Q&A, which is going to be much earlier than the due date for the response to the solicitation. So know what that date is and make sure, so that way you get a response. Questions submitted in writing again. Even if you don't ask a question, the others that ask questions, that might have been something you didn't think of and find that to be very important. Again, you need to acknowledge that amendment for the Q&A. And this is just kind of a reference to review each of these boxes very carefully. Look for the X's when they write these or issue these. They will X where it's applicable. Filling out all the spaces where they ask you to, sign it and date it, and make sure you sign any amendments and date those as well. So you want to be responsive. Completion of the solicitations. So if you're reading the entire solicitation, it makes you aware of the requirements. Get back to that matrix that you develop with the wills, the shalls, the musts. Fill in where properly completed and verified, and all copies have the same information. And just as a side, verify all your calculations before you sign your bid. And then, just list all of the documents that you need to include on your matrix. Past performance references, if those are asked for, your cost worksheets, your capability statement, and again, that download from Sam of your representations and certifications, which is your NACE codes. I am a small disadvantaged business. I'm a woman-owned business. Those set-asides that are going to be required potentially on the solicitation. Okay, be responsible. Responsive, you gave them everything they asked for in the instructions. Responsible means that you can meet the requirements, okay? That you have adequate financial resources. You can comply with the delivery schedule or performance schedule they're asking for. And these are the things that are going to be judged when you submit your offer. Satisfactory performance record. They're going to find these things on the past performance request. Necessary organization. Okay, maybe if it's a cost plus, do you have an audited financial system that, and at certain levels, they will come and audit it, but that you are compliant with the requirements. Otherwise, qualified and eligible. Okay, so you have to be judged responsive and responsible to be selected. So what I wanted to do was just take a few minutes and actually look at a solicitation that came out this morning. and just give you a couple of tips on what one looks like and kind of follow through the things that we just talked about. Number one, if you see this red circle up in the right-hand corner, always click follow. If this is a solicitation, you're going to be either actively bidding on or actively considering, click follow, because then whenever something, when you are logged in to sam.gov, if you click follow, then when something happens with this, an action is taken, deadline is changed, a amendment is issued, a quantity is changed, a spec is changed, you're going to be notified to go in and look at this, and you will see a note in the solicitation itself that there's an update, and you can click on and get all the changes that have been made. This is a download button. If you want to download this for further review, you can actually download the solicitation itself. This is going to tell you the department, the agency that is issuing the solicitation. Okay, so that's important to know. Notice ID is located right there. Okay, general information. What is it? We saw that there's 7, 8 different ways that a notice would come out in SAM. In this case, this is our combined synopsis solicitation. This is ready to go. If it was a special notice, we wouldn't be bidding on it. We would just be paying attention to what they're notifying us of. Pre-solicitation, again, this gets on our radar then that something is coming. 15 days or so, we'll see it again. Okay, your published date, it just came out yesterday on the 27th. They actually give you the full 30 days, and it's due on February 27th. Okay, inactive, at that point, it's going to go into the archives, and we'll find that then on those databases where we can see the historic information. Okay, now set aside, very important. Again, referencing those small business set-asides for under $250,000, or could be greater if the market is out there for the rule of 2, then this is a total small business. So if you are small per the NAICS code standards by the SBA, you could bid on this. And that means too, if you're HUBZone, women-owned, service-disabled veteran, 8A, everybody's coming to the party in this case as a small business total set-aside. Okay, place of performance, understanding, as most of us do, that the contracting office may not be where the work is being performed, and many times it isn't. In this case, it is, but the place of performance, Phoenix, Arizona. If that's a place you're going to work, great. If not, you'll know to move on, that this one probably isn't for you. Okay, and then you get down to the attachments and links. You can hit one button and download all of this information. Keeping in mind, if anything here is restricted or controlled, that means that there's something else that needs to be done. They may be restricted because they're related to the Department of Defense. And so there may be a certification called a Joint Certification JCP that you need to have so that you can access these. Many times it'll say controlled, and you have to have a role within your company. So the company that you are tied to, having that role with them, having access to the data would allow you to pick those up. But you'll see a little note there that says, hey, you either need a role with the company, and if you don't already have one, if it's not your company, for example, you'll have a key there that will tell you when they're not public, how do you get access to those documents? But these are all public. And here's our contact information. So we're going to contact Dale Clark and follow through. And I like this little bar chart here at the bottom. This history, this Gantt chart will tell you all the actions that are taken on this solicitation. So this is the first thing that happened. As things are changing, as amendments are issued, that timeline is going to continue to progress until the point the award is made. So history is a good way to make sure that you're all caught up. Okay. And then what I wanted to just note was all of these attachments can be opened, and the statement of work is on here. There's a tax exempt, just to tell you that this is actually work performed in Phoenix on some equipment, some preventive maintenance. So if there's anything that you needed to charge for, there is a tax exempt certificate. So it's really right now just for reference. the price schedule. It is a very basic price schedule. In fact, it's just an Excel spreadsheet and it is a fixed cost. Okay. Now this just happens to be a requisite or a solicitation that says when needed, we'll contact you. IDIQ, meaning you tell us how much it's going to be. Here's the range where it could be anywhere from 250 times to 400 times. You tell us how much it's going to be each time. And then when we need you, we'll release to you a task order, and that's when you'll get paid. So it's a very simple 2-line little Excel spreadsheet, fixed cost. And then the PDF here is just those instructions, those all important instructions. So you got a price schedule, you got instructions, and they're going to tell you in here, again, how you're going to be evaluated and how they want you to submit this. Okay. So I want to leave time for questions. I'm going to just acknowledge that we have the second part of this series where we're going to go from understanding the solicitation to how to respond to the solicitation. So in our second session, which will be March 28th, I hope that you'll join me then and talk about, with that knowledge, how are we going to put together that request for proposal or request for quote. And I do encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn and find, as Jordan said, more about our upcoming training sessions. We're doing about 3 or 4 a month. So there's lots of opportunity to learn more about government contracting. And then here is our website. Join us there too as well to look for government contracting opportunities and etc. And then I want to point out, especially March 11th and 12th, Forest Park, Illinois. You saw a list of 11 Illinois Apex accelerators throughout the state. We're joining forces and we're having our second annual Illinois Government Contracting Summit, where we're inviting agencies, prime contractors. It's a 2-day event. First day will be training, different agencies coming in to present training, different affiliates that support us. And then on the second day, it will be a networking event. So you will have the opportunity to meet primes and in a reverse matchmaking as a business owner to set up with your capability statement and be approached by those agencies or prime contractors that are looking to buy what you're providing to the government. And then also the agencies, some will have their own setups to tell you how to do business with them. So highly encourage you. You should be able to link to that through our LinkedIn and register for that and join us on March 11th and 12th in Forest Park. It'll be a great session. Okay, so I'm going to go to questions now, and I'm going to leave up here on the screen my contact information in case you want to follow up with me and get any additional information on this or other topics related to government contracting.
Thank you so much, Kelly. We actually don't have any questions submitted right now, but I will reiterate because I know we had a couple people jump on. You can put those in the chat if you missed that little spiel at the beginning. And I'll also share that you will get a follow-up email later today with this presentation and the recording. So if you have any follow-up questions, you are always welcome to register as a client of our center, work with Kelly directly on any of these processes and things like that. Our services are offered at no cost and they're totally confidential. So please be aware of that. If you would like to reach out, you will not be charged for working with Kelly or any of our other advisors here on our team.
Very good point, Jordan. Thank you. And I just want to mention too, this is a new presentation for us. This was a new session, but one that I had many requests for in the past, and I think it's very important. And we've done it one-on-one, but to put it all together in a way that we could do it as a group. Is something I've worked on for quite a while. So I would love your feedback. If there's something that you'd like to have more time, less time on, something to add to this, if you have any thoughts, I'd love for you to share those with me because I just want to make this better. Like to do this probably about once a quarter with Jordan's help. So if you have any feedback for me, I'd love to hear it. And there's my email address there. pretty simple, kh@cusbdc.org. And please email me if you would, and let me, give me any feedback, positive, negative. Let me know what you thought, and let me improve this for the next time around.
Well, we can go ahead and wrap up today since we didn't get any questions. Again, that email will go out later today. It will have all the information about today's specific session, but then our upcoming ones as well. So we look forward to seeing you back at another one of our webinars in the future.
All right, great. Thank you so very much for joining me today, and hope to have you join again in the future.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.